Reflections of Malfoy. Chapter 1.
In that instant when Harry Potter sincerely declared to the Wizengamot that he did not truly see Draco Malfoy as evil, a new sensation stirred in Draco, the wish for Potter to perish. It was a feeling he found surprisingly unfamiliar. He had believed himself seasoned in such desires. Yet, for the better part of the previous year, his longing had been the opposite. For the sake of his family, as each day passed under the rule of a noseless lunatic in his ancestral home, Draco had wished fervently for Potter to be out there, ready to fulfill his destiny. To banish the darkness. To be the world's savior. To be his savior. And Potter had indeed saved both the world and Draco, from Fiendfire, from the Dark Lord, and from Azkaban, because, of course, Potter had taken the moral high ground. He did what was right no matter what. He didn't despise Draco enough to act otherwise. Draco caught the look in Potter's eyes throughout his trial, those green eyes, the color of a killing curse. Potter was so far above him that contempt wasn't part of the equation. Instead, there had only been pity. It was this pity that made Draco wish Potter were dead. That pity, which was clear on Potter's face as he waited for Draco and his mother at the courtroom's entrance afterward, disregarding the curious stares cast his way. He silently returned Draco's wand. When Draco attempted to speak, Potter turned away. Maybe he hadn't heard him, or perhaps he had. Upon their return to the manor, Draco found the state of the place disheartening. Rummaged through initially by the dark side and then by the light, with Auror scouring every corner until their arrival. Then they allowed his mother to restore the protective spells. Yet she didn't, because this task was now Draco's, the official Lord Malfoy with his father sentenced to life. Draco feared his wand might fail, its loyalty perhaps too deeply tied to Potter, like the rest of the world. But it responded to him as Lord Malfoy, bringing the manor's wards to life. Say what one will about being Lord Malfoy, the title came with an impressive wine collection. His mother gave him enough space to discreetly slip into the cellars. She had been uncannily quiet since the rise and fall of the Dark Lord. Perhaps they should have celebrated their survival through Potter's pity or lamented its limits that did not extend to Father. Despite the hours Draco spent in Azkaban envisioning conversations with his mother if given the chance, neither of them found much to discuss, even in solitude. Instead, Draco sought solace in a bottle, following the time-honored tradition for a Lord Malfoy. He wasn't sure what he'd have said to Potter had he stayed to listen. Gratitude seemed obligatory. "Thanks a lot, Potter," Draco remarked to the empty stone chamber beyond the wine cellar, his empty laughter echoing off the walls that once reverberated with screams when Aunt Bella worked her dark magic on her victims. Aware of his ingratitude, Draco mocked himself, a hollowness resonating akin to his aunt's despicable legacy. "Thanks a lot, Potter." "Thank you." He must assume the role of Lord Malfoy now, to restore the manor and the name attached. To not dwell on the uncertain future facing that name-bearer. He and his mother had much to be thankful for, a realization as bitter as the burning whiskey in his throat. They were neither dead nor confined in Azkaban. They remained in a manner they had expected would be forfeit in reparations. And yet, it stayed in their possession, nearly untouched. The Malfoy fortune had suffered but a slight loss. They hadn't lost anything truly meaningful, except Father, Vince, and Severus, if Draco could include him in his private musings. They were intact, thanks to Potter and his mercy. Draco resolved to be Lord Malfoy the next day, for his mother's sake. She needed him strong. And he would be, tomorrow.
Tonight he drank.
He quickly forgot the cold floor. Azkaban had stripped him of certain comforts, and escape in any form from his thoughts was welcome. He poured a bottle of brandy, Vince's favorite, watching as it flowed like a sad river over the old stones, more beautiful, somehow, in the bewitched glow than anything in Azkaban. He found swift drinking numbed the mind. By the time he attempted to leave the chamber, his inebriation turned his legs into lead, and he staggered against the walls. Aiming for more alcohol, he veered off track, the enchanted candle ceasing its guidance. It wasn't troubling when he wandered into a room aglow, a large, silver mirror standing at its heart, framed by a crisp, white halo. Happening upon a peculiar chamber within the manor, replete with what seemed a magical artifact, was a rite of passage in this ancient home. It had occurred a dozen times during his youth, even before interlopers opened doors heedlessly. Though his father's words drilled safety into his instincts, tonight Draco disregarded those impulses, reckoning the Aurors would have confiscated anything perilous. In truth, he simply wished to gaze at his reflection. To visualize how he must have appeared to Potter outside that courtroom, perhaps a drunken shadow of his former self. He weaved his way over to examine his image in the glass, letting the half-full bottle slip in an idle manner, watching it dance over the ancient stones. He scrutinized the apparition before him, pondering the shape he might take on two awkward occasions when he'd be forced to leave the manor, at Severus and Vincent's funerals. There was a chance he might encounter Potter, perhaps not at the first, but likely at the second. It all depended on whether Potter's lofty compassion stretched to his most unlikable teacher. Severus, who reportedly had been aligned with the forces of good from the start, made the thought of his funeral oddly more burdensome than Vincent's. It seemed inevitable for Vincent to die at Hogwarts, akin to Aunt Bellatrix and Voldemort, as it would have been for Draco or his kin. But Severus, who had battled as valiantly as Potter to topple the Dark Lord, and perhaps even harder in his own cunning Slytherin way, met the same fate, his efforts reduced to a sparsely attended funeral as the final memory of Draco's godfather. It was unjust that Potter, having saved so many, Draco included, failed to save Severus. He despised Potter. He wished Potter absent from Severus's funeral. He despised the thought of attending Severus's funeral. The very notion of a funeral for Severus was something he resisted. It would be more fitting for his father or himself, though Potter, now, wouldn't that be exquisite? He wished fervently for Potter's end. Given a chance, he would trade Potter for Severus without hesitation. Or himself, if need be, for Severus had accomplished what Draco could not. Severus was the reason Draco stood there, glowering at his tarnished reflection, his mind trapped in childish resentment towards Potter, rather than languishing in Azkaban for killing the esteemed Albus Dumbledore or lying victim to Aunt Bella's wrath for failing spectacularly in his task. Severus should have survived, and in his muddled state, Draco indulged the belief it was Potter's inadequacy to blame. That somehow, Potter, if willing enough, could have rescued Severus from the clutches of the Dark Lord, as he had shielded Draco from the fiend fire. Desperately, Draco had wrapped both arms around Potter during that harried broom ride, holding tight with both marked and unmarked arms alike. His gaze could not linger too long on his own reflection. It strayed to the silver edge of the mirror, where the abstract engravings suggested illuminated letters along its crenellated border. Draco muttered them aloud, fumbling through the message slowly on account of his clouded mind, each word interspersed with the same symbol, a triangle circumscribing a circle bisected by a line, albeit only the circle glowing alongside the letters. Squinting, he deciphered Esideru, reading aloud phonetically, Esideru, which led to gibberish beyond, Lefo Tukab Mil Simon Oilno. Yet this glowing nonsense was far less repellent than his haunted post-Azkaban visage. Potter had returned his wand, permitting him any curse that might strike at the vexing mirror. Perhaps it would amuse Potter to know that, after vanquishing the Dark Lord, the first spell Draco cast with his wand would be against his own reflection. Finestra Maxima, Draco hissed. It took 3 efforts before any reaction occurred. But on the 3rd attempt, light burst forth from his wand, interfering with the glass until eventually it broke. Yet only the sound of breaking glass ensued, light fracturing into intricate cracks like vanished sparks beneath still waters, with no shards falling from a surface as slick as an undisturbed lake. As the shattering succumbed to silence, he heard the resonating glass transfigure into a tender melody, reminiscent of a lullaby. It was perhaps akin to the murmured spell Severus had sung as he healed Draco after Potter's assault. But the melody surpassed that spell's beauty, lingering briefly in Draco's ears before his vision also began to fracture, becoming a cascade of breaking reflections, overlaying until they seared into blindness. Draco's first perception on reviving was surprise at the absence of a hangover, though he knew a headache or nausea might attack once he attempted to stand. His second realization was a hope his mother wouldn't find out he had succumbed to drink in their cellar. Beyond its impropriety, he had hoped their days of sheltering sleepers in such a place were behind them. Climbing to his feet with blurred sight, he fumbled for his wand to illuminate the room. Patting every pocket, it was not to be found. Nor did he see any trace of that large, enigmatic silver mirror which had occupied the space with him. Had he misplaced it upstairs somehow? Even by recent inappropriate standards, losing his wand so quickly after Potter's return was noteworthy. Unless it had somehow drifted back to Potter. Or vanished of its own volition, though Draco had never known such a thing possible. Yet Potter was the chosen one. His capabilities seemed limitless. Perhaps a wand would prefer Potter over him. Such was the way of things. He had not even been making sense to his own self lately. His mind drifted, undisciplined, as he made his way out of the cellar, scanning for any hint of either his mother or house elves that might unravel his latest minor lapse, sleeping off alcohol below their home. He was fortunate not to wake with a hangover, nor with any aches from resting on hard stone, but his streak of luck ended when he ascended the stairs into the dwelling and found himself staring directly at Dobby, the house elf, the deceased one.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated with more audiobooks. Happy listening!